Hello and welcome to the Brave Business Podcast, brought to you by the accounting, tax, audit and advisory firm Blick Rothenberg. Brave by name and brave by nature, this series is different. Aimed at entrepreneurial businesses, we focus on providing practical guidance, timely insights and professional opinions from industry experts, helping you make informed decisions for your business. I'm Declan Curry, journalist and broadcaster. In this episode, we're looking at sustainability. Everybody talks about it, but we're going to look at the business case for it, what you actually have to do beyond the warm and cuddly cliches, and how you can prove that you mean what you say. Helping us along on this discussion from Blick Rothenberg, its partner Jim Brown, from Vivobarefoot, Charlotte Pumford, and from Seismic, Paul Lewis. Welcome, the three of you, to our discussions. Charlotte, just tell me what Vivobarefoot is.
Yep, so Vivobarefoot is a barefoot footwear brand, or a natural health lifestyle brand, if you like. Founded just over 12 years ago by two seventh-generation cobblers, Galahad and Asher Clark. Our mission at Vivo is to reconnect people back to nature and back to their natural potential.
Clark as in the shoemaker's Clark, yes. The same family.
Yes.
That's a name that'll be well known to many of our listeners there. So you make shoes?
We do.
And they're shoes that are designed not to feel like shoes, is that right?
Exactly that. So our footwear, we like to call it footwear rather than shoes, is made to be wide, it's made to be thin, and it's made to be flexible. It's made for our customers to be able to feel the ground as close as possible, and it doesn't contain any kind of padding or heels that you would find in kind of, I guess, in inverted commas, normal shoes.
And the reason you and I and the others are talking today is because in that business, your responsibility is sustainability.
Yes, so I am the regeneration lead, if you like, for Vivobarefoot, and that entails guiding Vivo on its mission to become a regenerative business in future. So everything you think of in terms of sustainability, our B Corp certification, the way we make our products, material innovation, and the way that we work with our manufacturing partners.
Thank you. Paul Lewis from Seismic. What is Seismic?
Great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Seismic really is the culmination of myself and my co-founders' beliefs that businesses have an opportunity and responsibility to help the world become a better place. We're facing some challenging times right now, and we believe that businesses have that opportunity. So in essence, we are an ESG advisor for the business community, and we really feel very privileged to be able to come together with our partners who we work with, essentially to do two things. We firstly help them put the right plans and strategies in place to make the changes that they can and are able to. And then we partner with them to make that happen. And so this sort of work is around strategy in the environmental sense, in the social impact sense, helping companies navigate an increasingly challenging regulatory landscape as well at the moment. We work with a framework called the B Corp framework, which is an incredibly powerful and robust management tool that companies use. And we also help companies with their carbon, which is a very particular technical area of work, and then communicate better to help bring all sorts of entities together. And then in turning those plans into reality, we sometimes act almost like an outsourced sustainability function. And we're really excited about the opportunity that companies have. Not only companies like Vivobarefoot, who are clearly pioneers in what they do, and we also work with the likes of the Patagonias of the world and Innocent Drinks, many who may feel are kind of pioneers, but those that are really just getting going, thinking about where can I start, how can I start, and what are the tools that I can use to become not only more impactful, but also turn that impact into commercial gains as well. And I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years ago, it was very difficult to make the case in a commercial sense. But
to the argument, the business climate and the business discussion about sustainability is quite different now from what it was 20 years ago.
The case is far easier to make now, but the urgency upon us as a society is, of course, many fold more. So yeah, that's a sense of what we do at Seismic.
And the companies that you work with, is there a particular industry that you specialize in? Is it small companies, large companies? What's the roster looking like?
Oh, so it's a range. I mean, we work with some very large organizations like Vodafone, like Motability Operations, a very interesting organization. They provide mobility solutions for over 750,000 disabled people across the UK. They've got multiple billions of revenue. They've got an incredible opportunity and a big challenge to be able to move at the pace that they want to. Really inspiring. But also lots, most of our work are with kind of mid-tier, lower mid-market companies who may be in the services space, B2C, B2B space. A lot of our clients really serve the FTSE 100. There's a lot of pressure coming down from the FTSE 100 companies who've got an incredible amount of pressure on them from their investors, and they're passing that pressure down their supply chain. So yeah, real mix. We probably work with 120 organizations across Europe, mostly across Europe and a few beyond that.
And Blick Rothenberg is one of them.
I'm very happy to say indeed, yeah. What a wonderful partner they are too.
And Jim Brown, you are one of the key people in Blick Rothenberg in terms of its sustainability journey and its agenda.
Absolutely, yeah. Very much supported by others in the business, and in particular Angela Cook, our head of diversity and inclusion, who's been very key in supporting me and the firm on this journey. But yeah, been leading our drives to look at sustainability in the wider sense as a business.
When we say sustainability, Paul, what does that mean to you?
I mean, sustainability, we can look at that through the lens of, in a business context, I'm talking from a business context here, we can talk about enabling business or society to sustain itself. But I think we need to go further. We need to be looking at regeneration and repairing what we have lost. And for me, sustainability needs to be looked at the lens of those almost kind of nitty gritty commercial elements. I think we can talk to the it's the right thing to do. We can talk to there's no business on a dead planet. Those two phrases really resonate for me, and they do for the whole team at Seismic. But I know for those who are perhaps a little bit more skeptical in the business community, they need to be thinking about sustainability in a more particular and precise sense. So we think about those elements through the lens of risk, through the lens of opportunity, which is really about the essence of the conversation today.
And in terms of the decisions that companies have to make, the parts of their operations that they need to look at, is there a particular area that they need to really concentrate on first? What are the initial steps?
I think the initial steps are really to consider the actual business itself. So the context of sustainability or regeneration within a business is the business. It's fundamental to be making those two conversations join up. I think in times gone by, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I saw a massive array of organizations who had perhaps a sustainability manager or someone focused on sustainability a long way away from where the actual business decisions were being made. I'm really thankful now and great to see now, it's a senior people in the organizations like Jim who's really kind of taking the mantle and moving it forward. And in doing that, business strategy, sustainability strategy can absolutely get joined up, and it needs to be in order for it to work in its fullest sense.
Charlotte, in your business, in Vivobarefoot, what does sustainability mean on a day-to-day, how the business operates? What does it mean?
Yeah, so I think linked to what Paul's just articulated, it's everything. It's every decision we make. It's the way that we evolve and shape Vivo. It's the beginning of Vivo. It's Vivo it's Vivo in 10 years' time. And essentially what that means is that everyone in the business needs to feel an ownership over this. Because like Paul said, there used to be one sustainability person in isolation or in silo trying to kind of change the hearts and minds of leadership. But now actually we're in a position across the industry more broadly, but also specifically specifically within Vivo, where actually we've got that leadership and we're all aligned to the mission and the strategy. So on a day-to-day basis, I would say that it's just involved in every piece of decision making. So I'm fortunate to be able to sit on the legal board. So from the top level, from the kind of that level down into the overlooking the organization in terms of the strategic aspects of how we evolve Vivo, but also from within the company itself, working with the teams from the way that we market our products, the way that we continuously improve our footwear with the materials choices we make, the end of life choices we make for recyclability or whatever it might be. But most importantly, also the way that we interact with our community, the way that we treat our employees within the business, and the way that we build communities and we raise awareness for moving beyond sustainability, which, as Paul mentioned, sustainability is no longer enough. We need to be focusing on regeneration and making sure that everyone is aligned to moving forwards as fast and as far as we can.
So it's more than just a simplistic look at what materials do we use to make our footwear, how much energy, how much water do we consume when we make our footwear. Those are important. It's a much wider discussion than.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think a good way that we look at it is we have 3 business pillars, if you like. The first one is regenerative business. So that includes all of our governance practices, all of our strategy, the way that our board, our leadership team, our employees operate. We then have regenerative product, which is where the materials, the recyclability, our circularity mission and ambitions lie. And then on the other side of that, we have regenerative community. We have a charitable fund that I'm fortunate to oversee, and that forms a kind of the heart of the way that we operate in terms of how we want to interact and support and guide our communities. But of course, it's our customers. It's the way that we work with them on regeneration and how we start to, I guess, increase and the understanding and awareness of where we're looking to go as an organisation.
So it's also influencing your customers, influencing how they use your product, the decisions they make in their own lives.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, Vivo is on a mission to kind of reconnect people back to nature. And the way that we do that, the vehicle that we've chosen to do that with is footwear. But the bigger meaning behind that is natural health, biomechanics, regeneration, the mission and the strategy as a whole, and the community, the ambassadors and everyone else that we have in terms of driving that and communicating that.
Jim, Blick Rothenberg, as an accounting, tax, audit and advisory firm, you're not ordering in raw materials from different points on the planet. You don't have a supply chain like that. So what does sustainability mean in your business?
Well, it's interesting that aside from that, and you're right, we don't make things. We sell time and expertise in different ways. But aside from that, a lot of the challenges are very, very, very similar. So we have as a mission, we want to improve the lives of our clients, our colleagues and our communities in a sustainable manner. And we build that into decision making in everything we do. So from the leadership team having goals and targets that influence their bonus around sustainability right through the organisation, trying to make decisions at every level, exactly as Charlotte was saying, about understanding that we're operating in a sustainable way and looking at sustainability in a wide manner. So it is governance, it's how we deal with our stakeholders, be they our suppliers, our clients, our people. And a lot of the drive from this came from our people. It came from them having a real passion about their impact on the world and how it's going to be. And, this is ultimately how it drives the bottom line for us. It's not necessarily the reason we do it, but getting the engagement for our people and the buy-in from our people and retaining those people for longer is huge for a business like us who effectively sell people's time and expertise.
How has it changed the business on a practical level, in terms of how the business operates on a day-to-day basis? How have your discussions about sustainability changed it from how it used to be 5, 10, 20 years ago?
The biggest change there have been our people and how we look after them and how we consider them and how we manage them. We have now a number of, we call them employee resource groups, where people come together around a theme that they're passionate about, be it the ability for women to develop their careers or for people from different backgrounds or minorities to have the same opportunities as everyone else, or people with disabilities, and the environment being one of those examples. And our own people who are really passionate about these things come together to generate ideas and bring them to us. And I'm very pleased to say we managed to enact most of those, and they're beneficial for them, they're beneficial for us, and they're beneficial in driving the business forward.
But what is the business case for that?
The business case for us, there are two things, and Paul said it earlier. Some of it is the right thing to do. One of our core values is about being authentic and understanding. Are we making the right decisions for ourselves, for the sustainability of the business and the community we're a part of? So that genuinely is part of the decision making, but it does impact the bottom line as well. If someone chooses to stay with us as an employee for 6 months, 12 months longer, that makes a significant difference when you employ 850 people and the costs of recruiting and training and developing those people over time. We're increasingly as well seeing that our potential clients are asking these questions. I can't remember if it was Paul or Charlotte, but someone said that increasingly people are pushing down their supplier chain, asking these questions and understanding what's happening, and that's definitely happening to us. So RFPs, or requests for proposals, are a standard part of the procurement process for many large businesses now, where they will go to a potential supplier like ourselves and say, tell us what you do in areas A, B, and C. And historically, that would have been, tell us what you do to make sure that your network's not going to fall over and you're going to be able to deliver services. Increasingly, they are, how do you monitor your impact on the environment? How do you look after the people you work with? How do you treat your suppliers fairly? All these sort of questions that we're now, frankly, in a much better position to answer than we would have been before. Many of the things we were doing already, but we hadn't really formally thought about them and documented them and presented them in a way. And other things we've definitely learned from going through this journey over the last 3 or 4 years and understanding how we can operate differently as a business.
Paul, I want to push you a little on the business case, because there is a ongoing discussion about climate, which is one of the aspects of this, and the stated policy that we will, within society, reduce the production of gases that scientists say cause global warming. So net zero is the phrase for that particular ambition. And I hear businesses say, what is the cost of net zero? We hear all the arguments for it, but what is it going to cost my business in terms of money, in terms of time and executive attention, and why should I pay that cost?
I think you're right to push that point. Going back 5 years, the initial 1, 2, 3 conversations I had with executives around sustainability was, show me the return on investment that I need to make. Thankfully, those conversations are less frequent now. But when they are, I would come back to this point I made earlier about risk and opportunity. Think about it through the lens of risk. If we don't address these points, whether it's net zero carbon, to your point there, or anything else to do with sustainability across the breadth of social and environmental points, you as a business will lose your social operate or license to operate. You will lose your social license to operate as a business. And that's quite hard for executives to get their heads around, because what got them this far, we're saying, and society is saying, we need you to change. And if you don't change, you're going to plateau, you're going to decline, and you're going to become a stranded island that no one will want to be near. What we find is more useful and more compelling is talking about the opportunities. And both Charlotte and Jim have spoken about business development, and we always start with that because that's quite exciting. It gets executives enlightened and lively about the subject. And whether it's in a B2B space or a B2C space, customers are becoming more savvy, as well as wanting the traditional good value for money sense in what they're buying, great quality, whether that's a service or a product. They're now asking for those products or services to be delivered in a way that's aligned with personal values around impact, around ethics, around regeneration. And they're voting with their feet. If they're not seeing that or feeling that from their potential suppliers of those products or services, they're going elsewhere. The second point I'd say has also been mentioned, which is around people. There is an incredible opportunity to engage workforces and colleagues with this subject of sustainability. It touches everyone. Everyone cares about it in their home life, in their personal life and in their work life. So they want to be spoken about it. Some great statistics coming out now around attrition. Attrition in high-performing sustainability businesses is half of that of those across the general business community. And to Jim's point earlier, that's an incredible saving opportunity for businesses. And then the third I'd talk about is investment and access to capital. More and more investors are putting quite stringent due diligence processes in place for sustainability, where that wasn't the case even 12 months ago. We're doing increasing amount of work for private equity in that due diligence space, which is exciting. And so ultimately, I think we're seeing more data points, more evidence that management who are making savvy, focused decisions, they're seeing better shareholder return. They're being thanked by their shareholders for it.
Sure, but if you're running a medium-sized business or a small business, or you're running your own company, and you hear the advice that your business must become more sustainable, and then you open your newspaper or you listen to the radio or TV and you see that the big water companies have doubled the amount of pollution over the last year, or the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine and we had an energy crisis and suddenly we're talking about drilling in the North Sea again, then you're going to think, why should I bother with any of this? When bigger companies with much bigger impact on the nation and on the environmental climate are able to fall back into bad behaviours. Why should I be good?
I think that's a really fair point. And all of those examples that you speak to there are really disheartening. You know, it kind of knocks you back, and then you remember what's important for my business. You know, if I'm speaking on behalf of leaders and owners of businesses, what's important for that business, and you can create opportunities out of these crises and challenges. And a CFO said to me, after going on a bit of a journey, the CFO said to me, I get it now. This is a once in a generation investment opportunity, and it's our decision to make it or not. And yes, there's incredible crises going on, geopolitical crises all over the world, environmental challenges, but we're here, we're our organization. What influence, what opportunity do we have? And it's about those controllables and accepting or acknowledging the non-controllables, but doing something in that larger context within the boundaries of our business.
So these go on, Jim.
Some of that comes back to, if good men do nothing, then bad things will happen. And yet, yes, you can't necessarily influence those decisions directly by those large corporations. But if those things are happening, if you can look at installing taps that use less water, you're using less of those facilities, they're getting less profit, you're getting a better business. If you can look at reducing your energy consumption and making sure that it's from appropriate sources, again, you're gradually influencing those decisions over time. And I think no one's kidding ourselves that any one small business will change the world on their own. Lots and lots of small businesses doing lots and lots of things on a regular basis will have a huge impact over time.
So these are genuine conversations that are going on in business. Charlotte, you talked about two really interesting sets of conversations. One is that the people who work for you expect you to do this. The other is that your customers expect it. How do these conversations play out? How do you know that this is what they expect?
So I think looking at Vivobarefoot as a founder-led company on the one side, the people that work for Vivo, the founders of the business, it's always been in the mindset and the heart of the business from the start. So trying to demonstrate how business can be done better has always been there in the strategy. I think over the 12 years, Vivo has grown and seen, quite significant growth. Our customers and people who know of Vivobarefoot, they're the, sustainable footwear brand, which we say we aren't yet sustainable. But we're known for trialing and, not being afraid to be guinea pigs, if you like, to trial and to test, to learn, to fail, to try again. And also, I think there's an importance in that, in showcasing, and we speak about it a lot in our annual report, which we collaborate with Blick Rothenberg on, which is essentially we have champagne moments, if you like. So we really celebrate the successes, but also we call them as well fantastic failures. So we then also celebrate the failures that we go through. And with a business that's not afraid to trial and to test and to fail and to learn, that's really important. And I think the drivers from the customer side are our customers are really informed. So they're asking very informed questions. Tell us about where your products are being manufactured. How much are the people being paid that are manufacturing Vivobarefoot products? We want to see these new biomaterials in Vivobarefoot products, and so actually we're very fortunate to be learning from them. We interact with them across various different channels, but also focus customer groups where we really try and get customers involved in the future development of Vivo, and specifically within the products, and hearing from customers directly that this is important to them. And
there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of trial and a lot of error. You call them champagne moments and fabulous failures, which is a great way of describing it. Talk to me about some of it. Illustrate that for me.
Yes. So I'd say that innovation is happening everywhere across Vivo. We're always continuously, and we've aligned ourselves with regenerative business principles. So we're always in that kind of spring, summer phase of trialing and innovating and testing. From my side, I'm very close to, of course, the broader business with our B Corp certification, etc. But on our product side, our mission to be getting to fully circular products, and so we're currently on
Remind me what that means.
That means that we can take a material, we can turn those multiple materials, turn those into a pair of Vivobarefoot footwear. We can give those to our customers. They can wear them for as long as possible. Once they might need a resole or whatever it might be, they give them back to us through our Revivo platform for refurbishment. They go back to our customers to enjoy and to wear again. And then when they can no longer be worn, we will work with recycling partners to essentially recycle the footwear and then reutilize that recycled material back into future Vivobarefoot
So it's
footwear.
Repairing rather than replacing.
Exactly.
And then it's recycling at the very end.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that against the whole purpose of consumer business, which is to get us to spend as much money as we possibly can buying stuff that we don't really need?
And I think it's always an interesting question. It's a challenge. We back in 2020 were the first footwear business certainly to launch a re-commerce platform. So Revivo was launched back in 2020, and that was purely for repair and refurbishment. We've seen other business models here in terms of rental that we've now also evolved into. So there are different markets and different use cases that customers really want to tap into. But actually for us, and I think we've spoken about it a lot already so far, but it's the license to operate for the future. We're on a planet where we have significant overconsumption, and actually for us, we need to be getting every single pair of Vivos back so that none of them are ending up in landfill, so that we can be in the future. We're not quite there yet, but the innovation is helping to drive us there, and choosing and innovating better materials to be able to make sure that we can reutilize those materials. And essentially what we're saying is we're going to be reutilizing materials for reuse in product which we can then continue to sell and or rent and then repair and refurbish. So actually it's just a different mindset. We've changed the way that we design for footwear. So actually we consider end of life first. So everything has a material pathway. We're looking at two options for biodegradability and for recycling, and it really helps kind of steer and focus. So that's kind of a big piece of the innovation puzzle, if you like, for Vivo. A part of that is one of our kind of flagship projects, if you like, is Vivo Biome, which is a bespoke 3D printed footwear, which is made person by person, foot by foot, hopefully onshored, and with very much kind of a very shorter value chains. We like to call them value chains instead of supply chains.
So you don't have great big shipping costs bringing it round from a factory in Vietnam.
Yes. And again, a different way to look at how we reduce our environmental impact, but also how we create product for customers, which is customized, but also truly living the values with the circularity piece.
And Paul, this is a big trend, whether it's Marks and Spencer, doing deals about with charity shops, or John Lewis encouraging people to have stuff repaired at the local branch of Tipson's, or washing machine makers saying get it repaired rather than replaced. That's a big emerging trend all the way across the consumer sector.
Circularity is. I mean, there's no other end game. There is no other end game. That's where we will all be, whether we like it or not. And I'm really inspired by the Vivobarefoot story, as I am through some of our clients like Patagonia and Pucker Herbs and Innocent Drinks, who have they're pioneers. You know, their business was founded on these principles. I think there's a but there, which is the vast majority of organizations are quite far away from that level of operation. And I think the challenge for them is, okay, I'm inspired by these stories, but how do I get closer to that level of operation? And that's really where the day-to-day work comes in, to kind of take those steps forward, those pathways forward, and using frameworks that are tried and tested and used by many, many others.
And either how do you set up that infrastructure that's needed if it's repairs, or how do you plug into an existing ecosystem using companies that you might have thought of as your rivals, who can now be your partners in the delivering of this additional service that extends the life of the product.
Absolutely. There's collaboration is a key part of this. It's one of the key areas of rethinking in a business, which is looking outside of the four walls of a business. Who can I partner with? Where can I use ideas and collaborate? And I think it's one of those subjects where businesses who are competitors can break down walls, come together and form alliances in order for the whole industry to move forward in a good way.
Jim, in an auditing and advisory business, what's your equivalent of repair and reuse?
That's a very good question, and we don't have a direct equivalent. We don't consume materials in the same sense. I think our equivalent would be looking at making the minimal impact. So, you know, if you spoke to us 10 years ago as a business, we would have thought being sustainable was having recycling bins. You know, now it's going much further than that and understanding whether we're recycling everything we possibly can, whether, you know, we're working with the building management team, with the local council, understanding how we can filter those through. And recycling is a tiny part of our overall impacts, but everything we looking at it in that way. So our equivalent might be going to our suppliers and understanding whether their data warehouses are hosted in a sustainable way, because energy consumption there can be a huge issue. And I think, you know, none of those are net zero yet, but some of them are moving towards it, and we can choose our suppliers in such a way that can help drive those decisions. So it's every stage of, I'm going to steal the term value chain because I like that, every stage of our value chain and understanding how we can influence the decisions that are made along the way.
So it's a valid conversation. It's an important conversation, even if you don't make a physical product. If you're listening to this and you run a service company, you should be thinking along these lines as well.
I believe so. I think, and a lot of these things can help generate savings in the wider sense. As thinking about business in a sustainable way tends to mean trying to consume less and trying to, consume less materials, and that leads to cost savings as well. So I think these are relevant decisions for businesses in all sectors, in all areas.
And in terms of proving that you mean what you say, tell me about B Corp. What is that?
So B Corp is an incredible, broad and deep framework to really help organizations do two things. It's firstly for an organization to help for an organization to use this tool, this management tool called B Corp, to help them understand where they're doing well and where they're not doing so well. And it really covers 5 areas in a business that many people and organizations would consider beyond sustainability. And those 5 areas are environment, governance, workers, customers, and community. And your point earlier to Jim around a services organization, these areas of the framework cover both service-based businesses and product-based businesses as well. So this framework asks an incredible breadth and depth of questions lined up in those 5 areas to a business through what's called an impact assessment. It's almost like an external sustainability diagnostic of a business. And through that, you understand what your score is. Each question has an allocated number of points, even might be multiple points or fraction of points. And you build up this score, which is a picture of how strong you are across mainly social and environmental areas of sustainability. So the first thing I say is it's a great tool to become a better version of yourself as a business. And the second reason why organizations are interested in B Corp is because it's this external validation if you are a very high performer. So to be a certified B Corp is a mark and recognition of being a very high sustainability performing organization. And you need you need 2 things fundamentally to be a B Corp. You need 80 points in this impact assessment that I was referring to. And you also need to change your articles of association to declare essentially that the directors of the business are accountable not just to shareholders, but to the wider group of stakeholders, which of course includes shareholders, but also the environment, to your value chain, to your employees, to your customers.
So it's more than just an assessment. It's an important assessment, but it's also a declaration.
It is. It's a mark of I believe that my business can and should be a force for good, and help us out of these challenges that we're in into a better place.
And that assessment, who carries it out? How robust is it? How believable is it?
So 300,000 companies are now using this assessment across the world. It's becoming a very clear common language. It's governed by an organization called B Lab, which is a not-for-profit that is focused on growing this movement of organizations. And it's an open source assessment. It's there to use. It's free. It's accessible to anyone and by anyone. And if you want to submit your application to become a certified B Corp, it is firstly evaluated by B Lab and then verified through a very rigorous process. You are asked to provide evidence of to back up the answers that you're giving.
And how credible is the determination? Once you've got it, is that like a badge of honor? Is it like a gold star? Do people give you the credibility that you seek?
It's incredibly valuable as a mark of recognition of being a very high performer. Really importantly, it's not forever. You need to recertify every 3 years in order to demonstrate that you're keeping up with these standards. And by the way, the standards change over time. So over time, it becomes harder and harder to be a B Corp, which is right, because what it means to be a high-performing sustainability business changes over time. What was gold star 5 years ago is now not acceptable as a business. So it is, and I should add, it's certainly not the perfect framework. There isn't one, but it's in my experience in 20 years of working in sustainability, it's the most robust, it's the broadest, it's the most accessible and adaptable framework that I've seen in my career to date.
And Charlotte, Vivobarefoot has this.
We do.
Congratulations. What did you have to do to get it?
Good question. So I think linked to everything that Paul's just mentioned, it is essentially a very, very big questionnaire, and it's open source, which actually I get asked a lot. Where do we start? How can we start looking at sustainability for our business? Small to medium to large organisations, and I always say look at the B Corp framework because it is such a great place to look at in terms of where you can look for improvements and where to begin.
Did it help you find gaps in your own business? Did it reveal to you things that you thought were going okay, but actually you needed to do a bit more work on?
Yes, definitely. So we were first certified in 2020, and we've just gone through our first recertification. So as Paul said, every 3 years that happens, and it's an extremely rigorous process. So I mentioned earlier about trying to make sure that sustainability is integrated into everything you do as a business. So it's integrated at a board level, at a leadership level, and also we have what we call B champs or B champions across the organisation, sat in every department or circle, as we call them. And they are responsible for specific areas across those 5 pillars that Paul mentioned in terms of delivering progress and continuous improvement. And so every quarter, we have meetings with them and we sit and do workshops with everyone across the business. And that helps us identify where we can perhaps improve, where there are gaps. But also it helps identify opportunities for improvements and also innovation as well, which we spoke about as well previously. So it's an incredibly informative tool for helping drive kind of continuous improvement thinking.
Can you then use it to demonstrate to your customers, your employees, that you are as sustainable as you say you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, a lot of people that are looking to join Vivobarefoot or have joined Vivobarefoot recently or over the past 12 months have joined because one of the main driving reasons is because we are a B Corp certified business. It definitely is kind of a pinnacle badge, as you called it, if you like, to demonstrate that you are in a business that's aspiring to do better and to be more sustainable and as we say, kind of move beyond that towards regeneration. For our customers as well, it's a sign that they recognize. They ask us questions about B Corp. When we went through our recertification process, we actually involved customers in part of the data collection and questionnaires and getting customer feedback on product and on our projects and initiatives across the business. So it's an incredibly powerful mechanism that I think people can really align around to one, hold people more accountable, but 2, to level the playing field, if you like, of trying to make sure that everyone is moving forwards as a collective towards the same direction.
And Jim, Blick Rothenberg is on the journey towards it. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with Seismic actually to go through the process. I think I referred earlier, we found it a really useful framework to identify some things we were already doing, quite a number of things we're already doing, some things we were doing but could do a bit better, or could talk about a little bit more openly. I'd not heard green hushing before, but effectively some of the things we were doing, we just took as the norm and we would never have said on our website what our policy was on donating to charities, for argument's sake. A really small score in the B Corp, but just being open about the fact that we don't donate to political parties, that we're neutral in that perspective, that we choose to support certain charities and how we go about supporting them and the difference we've made to them, both in terms of money and with our time. We're probably a bit louder about that than we would have been now, and we can support that and substantiate it and say why. So there's a whole framework there that we're working through and making lots of improvements to our business as a consequence.
Were there aspects of it that were really challenging that made you think, gosh, I'm not sure we're going to be able to hit the mark on this?
Some of it, a lot of it's very challenging. It is not designed to be an easy process, as has already been said. And I think one of the things about the framework is, as Paul said, you have to get a certain score, 85. I don't know how many points there are available, but definitely over 100. So not every business has to do everything. That's every business is different, and every business can focus in a different way. So there are certain things in there that would be unachievable for us in the short term. Not necessarily things we would shy away from in the long term, but not things that we can do tomorrow. So actually, we don't have to do those tomorrow. We can focus on the areas that make a difference for us. And as I referred to earlier, a lot of our initial investment and change has been around people and our policies for supporting them in different ways at different stages of their life and different challenges, and developing them in different ways and supporting our communities. And so we've been able to focus on those and make a real difference there without worrying quite so much about, at this stage, for example, we've not done as much work on our Scope 3 emissions. So Scope 3 is a technical term for the emissions that you're responsible for.
What your customers do that you have
or our people that, they're not our direct costs, but they are emissions that are effectively created because of something that we do. So we've spent less time focusing on that at this stage, but we'll come back to that over time.
The sense I'm getting from the conversation we're having among the 4 of us today is that this isn't a destination and a journey. to a destination, and then once you're there, that's it. This is an evolution.
Yeah, we'll never be there. I don't think there is a there, or if there's a there, it's changing all the time, as you've implied there. I think this is about us learning to adapt as a business, learning to change as a business, and learning to be conscious of what's around us. And I imagine that's the same for my fellow colleagues here.
Now, Charlotte, for your business, you've got the B Corp accreditation, you've gone through the re-accreditation, you're saying all the right things, you're thinking all the right thoughts. So do you think you're there, or is there more to do?
We are 100% not there yet. We have a very, very long way to go. Whilst our footwear is regenerative to foot health currently, we are in no way, it's no way regenerative to the environment in terms of the materials. We still have a very, very long way to go. And so we class ourselves as still at the very beginning of this journey. And actually for us, we may never reach the regenerative business status that we're looking to attain, but this is exactly the mission that we feel is how we can, as we've spoken about before, how we can continue with a license to operate into the future with all of these kind of crises that we find ourselves in. But as Paul put it as well, the opportunities that come out of those, and the opportunities that come out of constant evolution and innovation.
Paul, I think some people listening to this discussion will be struck by that here we have a company that is in its core striving to be a sustainable business, and yet still doesn't think that it is.
I think that's the only way to look at this in a healthy manner. I mean, all we do is provide sustainability services. We're a B Corp. We're nowhere near where we want to be in terms of our own sustainability and our operations. And you need the ingredients to get closer, ever closer to where you want to be. To Charlotte's point, where you want to be is changing over time. And it's quite difficult to imagine, if we transported this conversation back 30, 40 years, what we're talking about now would be completely alien to that. And I think the same applies as we go forward every year or so. So I think it's the healthy way to be. And I really noticed this in our work partnering with Blick Rothenberg. When a company announces internally, we're on a B Corp journey, what's wonderful are pockets of people from all corners of the business suddenly come to the fore and say, how can I help? Because I know about this and I'm really passionate about it. And thank you for providing a framework for us to be doing some great things here. So I think that's incredible from a people point of view. A real moment of celebration is when there is B Corp when it's certified. All sorts of communities around a business will celebrate. And then they will ask the question back to the leadership team, what now? What are you going to do now? And I think that's exactly how we've got to be approaching this. And it's how customers are demanding that businesses are operating these days. So, B Corp is a real moment of validation when that certification happens, but it's only a moment on the journey. There's a long, long journey to go.
I said right at the start that we'd look at the business case for sustainability, and we've talked about lots and lots of aspects of it. But right at the beginning, you said that it was about retaining your social license to operate. Is that the strongest case, you think?
I think it is. But it's quite hard for a leadership team or anyone in a business to kind of get hold of that and go, what does that actually mean? How can I actually turn that and make it more tangible? And I think if you flip that kind of risk on its head and think about the opportunity, then it becomes quite a little easier to grapple with, really a little easier to get hold of. And just going back to the points made previously, it's about business development, to be able to survive and thrive in this fast changing sustainability landscape. Your customers need to be understanding that you are not only doing great things, but you're on a journey to enabling them to achieve what they need through their value chain. And without people, we are nothing in business. And more, particularly those that are more recently educated, are asking really quite fundamental questions, really educated questions as well, about what's going on, not only from an environmental performance case, but also about social the social impact as well. And I think they're the two main ingredients that kind of come back together to the point of, yes, you need to have a license to operate morally, socially, as well as legally as a business.
Yeah, I think that summarises it really, really well and completely reflects our view at Blick Rothenberg about this. This is just another way we can carry on making our business better and involving our people in doing that. And it's been a fantastic experience for them in what we're doing.
Jim Brown from Blick Rothenberg, thank you very much. And Paul Lewis of Seismic and Charlotte Pumford of Vivobarefoot, thank you for sharing your experience and insight as well. If you'd like to listen to other Brave Business episodes, you can find them on your favourite podcast service. Or for further insights to help entrepreneurial businesses, you can visit Blick Rothenberg's Entrepreneurs Hub. That's www.blickrothenberg.com/entrepreneurs. I'm Declan Curry. This has been the Blick Rothenberg Brave Business Podcast. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation.